What's up, guys? This is Coach Garrett with your first video for the unit on the Civil War and Reconstruction. Anytime during this video you need to pause it to take notes, please do that. I also have this video screen, just kind of me, so you don't just hear a voice talking to you, you actually see me. I'm in my house right now. If you want to see, there are two of my friends playing Madden while I'm doing this. And so you may hear in the background. Apologize for that. But it'll be totally okay. So, all right. Let's look at these two charts here. Okay, let's look at the North and the South. Okay, the Union and the Confederate resources at the start of 1860. Okay, 1860 is 1 year before Civil War starts. Okay, just from a quick glance at it, you can kind of see that the South is greatly outnumbered by the North. Okay, and so the North has a lot more resources, and that's just going to play into a big advantage for the North. Okay, it'd be a huge advantage. All right. So let's look at the Union, how it kind of collapsed. It starts in December of 1860, which is a monumental year for South Carolina, because South Carolina basically votes to secede from the Union. They see that Abraham Lincoln becomes president, and they get very afraid because they know that their rights are about to be taken away when it comes to slavery and other things like that. Okay, basically they viewed it as it was infringing on their rights to property and rights to prosperity. But anywho, they decide to secede or break away from the Union of the United States. But within weeks, then 6 other states will secede as well. All right, and so in 1861, all the states that seceded from the Confederate States of America, from the United States of America, will form the Confederate States of America. And so the Confederate States of America will be a new government that guaranteed the protection of slavery. Okay, they also fought for states' rights, stuff like that, but really they were fighting for slavery because slavery ran their economy, pretty much, if you think about it. Their leader was a representative from Mississippi named Jefferson Davis. He's right up top in that picture right there. All right, so 1861. This is when the war begins. So how it starts is South Carolina is part of the Confederate States of America, and there are 2 very famous ports in South Carolina, or very famous forts in South Carolina, in Charleston, Fort Sumter and Fort Moultrie. At Fort Sumter, the Union troops were stationed there, and the Charlestonians and South Carolinians said, "Hey, Fort Sumter is ours. You guys are no longer part of the Confederate States of America. You're from a foreign country. You need to leave, or we will take it by force." Lincoln doesn't send weapons, but he sends food to keep the Union troops in there, so they can kind of basically wait out the southern states. And so, for the Confederate troops get very suspicious of this, and they begin to fire from Fort Moultrie to Fort Sumter and other places in the Charleston Battery to destroy Fort Sumter and take it back. They are successful, and this success by the Confederates bring other states to the Confederacy or to the Confederate States of America. We look right here, there's a little map. You see all the states in red are the ones that seceded before the attack on Fort Sumter. The ones in yellow, the ones that came into the Union after the attack on Fort Sumter. The brown states are all slave states, but they were all still on the side of the Union. Okay, and then all the green states were free states. Okay, and that red line kind of separates the two. All right, let's compare really quick the North and the South. Look at population. The North has 22 million, while the South has 9 million. And even part of that 9 million, about 4 million of those were slaves. So really, the South only had 5 million people. Okay, so 22 million to 5 million people. That's a very big difference. All right, now look at the number of states. The South only had 11, while the North had 23. Again, the South is outnumbered. Now, if you look at the economies, we know that the North was industrial and the South agricultural, and that's how we got ourselves to this mess in the first place. The difference in economies and what they were based off of really, kind of started the discussion for slave and free states, and kind of, what's going to help out the economy the best, and eventually turned to other things, and then it got us here to the, Civil War. All right, share the railroads. So in the North, they had about 20,000 miles of track. All right, while the South only had 9,000 miles. This is a big deal because what are trains used for back then in the 1860s? Well, basically, they're used to transport goods and people, very quickly. Okay, you don't have cars, you don't have planes, helicopters, anything like that. All you have is horses, foot, and now trains. Okay, and trains get things a lot quicker than horses or feet can. So this is a very big deal. The North was able to move goods very easily among its industrialized area, while the South kind of struggled. With percentage of the nation's wealth, the South only had 25% of the wealth, and they had $0 in gold, while the North had $56 million in gold and $75 million, or 75% of the wealth. Okay, so the North, being a uh, more industrialized section of the nation, they were a lot more wealthy. The attitudes toward slavery, pretty plain simple. The North was against it. The South was in favor of. That's why we had the Civil War. Percentage of factories, the North being more industrial based, they had more than 80% of factories. And then the South, being more agricultural based, only had 20%. So the South did have factories, but just not as much as the North. In the monetary system, because the South had a more of a smaller industrialized economy, is mainly based off agriculture, their monetary system was a lot more weak, and they had a small banking system. And then in the North, it was a strong banking system because they were a lot more industrialized, and they were had a lot more stronger system in place. Okay, and so they even controlled 81% of the nation's deposits. Now, the South, though, gets an advantage because they had stronger leaders. They had military academies. They even had soldiers accustomed to horseback riding and were known to be able to use hunting rifles. But in the North, because they worked in factories and stuff, they didn't really have great military leaders. They didn't really have much soldiers. They had a lot of men, but they didn't have trained soldiers. They didn't really know how to work guns or ride horses, really, because they've been busy working in the factories than tending the fields and hunting and stuff like that, like they did in the South. So the South actually had an advantage because they had a stronger military tradition. All right, speaking of military tradition, let's look at their war strategies. The South had a plan to, one, they wanted to seek support from Great Britain, okay, so getting supplies, weapons, even men if they can. And number two is they wanted to defend their territory until Great Britain could come in and help them, or until the North ran out of resources to wage war, okay? Because the North also, they got a lot of their resources from the South. And so they want to give it to them so that the North would maybe eventually run out of resources unless they got from somewhere else. The Union, though, they had what was known as the Anaconda Plan. Okay, and so basically, it was a threefold plan to where one, they would blockade the South's ports all around the coast, and that way, Europe, like Great Britain and other European countries, they couldn't give them any supplies or anything like that. And then they kind of wanted to choke them out like a snake. That's why it's called the Anaconda Plan. Okay, so they wanted to cut off all their supplies, basically choke them out. Number two, you had the split Confederacy, or you want to split the Confederacy into at the Mississippi River. Okay, so the Mississippi River is a very important river in the United States, and that was where a lot of trade, a lot of ports, were on that river. And so if you could control the Mississippi, you could split the Confederacy in two, and they'd be unable to communicate with each other. It would get supplies to each other. And it would start to crumble the Confederacy from within. Number three was the attack on the Confederate capital in Richmond, Virginia. Okay, so they just want to go ahead and attack the capital, take out where the leaders were, hit it at the head, do what they could to take it out. Okay, and so you had the Union's plan with a threefold plan, and the Confederacy's twofold plan. Okay, which you kind of break it down. The Union, wanted to choke out the South like an anaconda, so they're just called an Anaconda Plan. The Confederacy just wanted support from Great Britain. They were just waiting for a bailout, waiting for Great Britain to come on in and to take care of the North for them, or to help them take care of the North. All right, let's look at the opposing presidents real quick. Abraham Lincoln was the president of the United States, while Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederate States of America. The opposing generals, you have Robert E. Lee, all right, the famous, like the Dukes of Hazzard, General Lee, named after this guy. And he was for the Confederacy. And you also have Ulysses S. Grant, who was a part of the Union. Now, Ulysses S. Grant was actually from the South, but he saw opportunity to, and he actually was kind of for slavery, but he saw opportunity